Hello everybody, it's me, Sarah Chi. Today's video I'm very excited about. It's sort of like a story time. I'll try not to make it too long, but there is like a lot of material to cover here. I also want to say that I know that I'm going to be missing things because this is like 15 years of data. A lot of people watching this will probably know the people I'm talking about. Please feel free to leave your thoughts down below. So I went to Christian schools from preschool up until my freshman year of college. So that's about 15 years of time where I was in Christian schools learning about regular subjects, but also the Bible was a big part of that. And I have had quite a few interesting Bible teachers. I just wanted to talk about all of them today because I think, well, not all of them. A lot of my elementary school teachers were just my regular teacher from day to day that would talk about the Bible with us too. But middle school on, I had specific Bible teachers that were just wild. I just wanted to go through. But the first person I want to talk about was not a Bible teacher and not from middle school to college. It was one of my elementary school art teachers. She was just so wild. She would tell us that she could see demons. I'm not even sure how to address that. She told us that she once saw a man walking down the street and she was like, oh, he's a demon. And then she was like, oh, that's like so judgmental, I shouldn't say that. But then as he walked past her, he punched a parking meter. And once someone had put paintbrushes from the art room back like upside down so they like got bent. And she's like, whichever one of you did that has a destructive demonic spirit. She was basically calling one of us like a demon. So that's like the biggest, weirdest thing that happened in elementary school in terms of crazy biblical teachings. But the Bible teacher we had was just our regular teacher. And she was also just like the worst person ever. I remember that she talked about how she saw two girls kissing on Glee, and that was like, she was like really shook by that. 7th and 8th grade, I had this man that we'll call Gibby. He was okay for the first year. I was like, wow, he's like a cool Bible teacher. Like I like asked him a bunch of questions. And then the second year, he was planning on leaving the school and going to another school that was just paying him more, which was like kind of like, I understand, but also like sketchy. But the second year that I had him, he just gave up and we just watched like YouTube videos for like all of class, which I should have been like grateful for at the time because I didn't know how crazy it would get. And I was like, he obviously doesn't care. We would like do assignments and he would just lose them and like we would like get like a B+. And I was like, well, this is dumb. So that's all of middle school. 9th grade where it really kicks into high gear. That's when we had a man that I will call Apocalypto. And Apocalypto was an old man who just loved telling you about how he thought the apocalypse was like gonna come in our lifetime. Not in his because he was super old and was gonna die soon, but it would be there by the time before we died. And I was like, cool, great. I love that that is filling me with fear and anxiety for probably the rest of my life. He also ended up having like a surgery, I think, and then like we just watched movies in his class for like the second year that I had him. It was just like, it was no effort put into my education. Apocalypto also told us that the Antichrist had already been born in the Middle East and that he would basically like ruin the entire world. We were like, cool, great. So I don't really know what I believe about the Antichrist, but like you don't really need to be telling like 15-year-olds like the Antichrist is already alive and is like ready to kill. It's just like not the ideal way to do things. I don't know. Ugh. My 11th and 12th grade Bible teacher is really like the doozy of this whole list. And like, again, I know I'm gonna miss stories about him because there's so many that I've heard from so many different people that went to the school with me. I'm gonna call him about to die because he would say all the time that he was like gonna die soon, gonna die now. If he died during class, don't revive him. He would brag a lot about how he's like a huge sports star in high school. And we were like, we just do not care. He's like, yeah, I was the captain of the football team. Like, I like worked harder than anybody else. And I was like, once again, this is not relevant. Like, he preached like a chapel sermon one time about that. And we were like, what are we learning? What is the point? He was also like, oh yeah, I dated all these beautiful women when I was young. But he told us about like this one who he's like, oh, she was an oversized walrus. And I was like, you can't say that as a human being, but also as a teacher and an authority figure and a Christian leader. I'm gonna get heated. He would also tell a lot of these stories either about himself or people that he knew. He told one about himself where he was like, he would go to his gym and like talk to this like guy who was also like working out there, and they would talk about God, and like the guy who was talking to like wasn't a Christian, but they would talk about God a lot. And one day the guy was like, hey, I would love to like talk to you next time about this again. And About to Die was like, sorry, I can never work out again. He was having surgery soon on, I think his back or maybe his leg, I don't really remember. But he was like, after today, I can never work out again. And I was like, that is such a bold thing to say. Also just like, hang out with the man somewhere else. Like, you don't have to go to the gym to talk to this man. And he made it seem like they never spoke again. And I was like, what? This is crazy. This is what we paid tuition for high school. I was paying this man to tell me this. It gets more and it gets worse. I heard from one of my friends that he was talking about demons one day in class, because love to talk about demons at my school. This girl kept asking a bunch of questions, and he would answer her questions, and eventually like she got obsessed and she joined a coven and is like a witch now. Imagine like being a Bible teacher that you're so bad that you turn someone into a witch. Like, I know like a bunch of atheists like must have come like from this class, but like he turned her into a witch. He also had us watch, he didn't have us watch, we'd heard that he'd had other classes watch, and we requested to watch this documentary called Hell's Bells, which was about how rock and roll was all influenced by the devil and demons. And if you played rock and roll songs backwards, they would be like, we worship the devil. But it was so hard to hear because it wasn't real. And it was like made in like either the 80s or the 90s. And it was this like terrible documentary that was like, every rock star is a devil worshiper. I'm sure like a bunch of like rock stars like use that imagery to be like, oh, we're edgy. But like, we were showed this during class. During a few classes, we were showed Hell's Bells, the documentary about rock stars being like Satan worshippers. That is insane. Tell me that that is not the most insane thing you've ever heard in your life. I know that there are literally so many more stories that About to Die would tell to his class, but the one that sticks out to me the most was this one that he told where a pastor was preaching and a man came into the church and he like shot and killed the pastor while he was preaching. And the man who shot the pastor went to jail, and the wife of the pastor was like, I need to forgive this man. And like, sure, forgiveness is super healthy, like I'm all for like trying to do that. And she went to the jail to visit him and was like trying over like a long period of time to like forgive him and like make peace with the situation. And eventually when he got out of jail, like she had him come like work in the church to like help like rehabilitate him. And eventually she married the guy that killed her husband. Which like, sure, even if you like have forgiven the person, like you can like maybe have like some kind of friendship. But I think it's really rude and disrespectful to your husband, your former husband, and like all of his family that you married the man that killed him. If that story is real, I'm going to lose my mind. That's like, what a terrible thing. Like, even if he's changed, even if he's like a whole new person, like he still did kill your husband. I lied. The real last story I'm going to tell is actually about a man that About to Die knew personally. About to Die was like this man's pastor. Oh yeah, the Bible teacher that I had who was crazy was a pastor. About to Die is too long of a name. I'm just gonna call him Mr. Simmons. So Mr. Simmons was a pastor, and he was this guy's pastor, and the guy came in and was like, hey, I'm cheating on my wife with this woman who lives in Virginia. And this like Mr. Simmons was like pastor in a church in Delaware. And like the guy who was cheating on his wife, like he would go down to Virginia for business, sleep with this woman down there and come back. And Mr. Simmons was like, you need to stop that. Like you have to like end that with her and like never like see her again, basically. And the guy who was cheating was like, okay, like I'll do that. And he like, I think went down like for business, and he also like went to be like, hey, we're breaking this off. But I think instead of breaking it off, he like slept with her again. And I don't think he like was officially like, we're done. But according to this story, on the way back, the man who was cheating, his plane crashed into a mountain, which if true, is very sad. But I don't believe that it's true. And like, Mr. Simmons posed this as like this was like God's punishment for him cheating on his wife, which is another insane thing to say. And we were all like, what do we even do with this information? Like none of us are cheating on our wives. None of us are like crashing into mountains. It was so insane. I think the real last story will be that one day there was 2 classes from my grade that were in classes with Mr. Simmons. And the other class that I wasn't in, one day, like, they're having some kind of discussion, and he, like, got really angry. I don't know all the details, but he got really angry, was, like, yelling at people and, like, just being, like, nasty and, like, not professional. And one of my friends, or, like, a couple people, I think, like, told the principal that he was doing this. And, like, I think as a combination of, like, that and also, like, our school would have, like, massive budget cuts, he got fired. He then proceeded to blame that class for being the reason he got fired. Not because that he was, like, a bad teacher, unprofessional, like, would say insane things and, like, be terrible to people. He was blaming them for telling on him. And it's, like, that's, like, you should... I can't even express, like, how much this angers me. So I'm just gonna move on. College was, like, a little bit more chill. I had, like, different professors for, like, Bible in first and second semester. But my second semester, I had a professor who I'm gonna call Professor Casper. He, along with Mr. Simmons and Apocalypto, loved to just talk about, like, how, like, the world was gonna end in my lifetime. And I'm, like, sick, amazing. He was also just, like, so dull. I just did not pay attention to his class at all. Which, like, I know. But, like, usually I was able to pay attention in classes, and his was just, like, so disorganized and boring. We were supposed to, like, learn, like, I think the entire context of the Old Testament with him. We got through, like, maybe half of it. I don't even think that much. And, like, the most prominent story that he told was how, like, one of his daughter's friends thought that she might have AIDS. And this is back, like, in the 80s, I think. And he was, like, taking her to get tested, and he was, like, comforting her, and he said that he's like, I didn't know at the time if you could get AIDS from people's tears, but I let her cry on my shoulder. And he was like, she didn't have AIDS. And I was even more relieved than she was when we heard. And I was like, not true. And also, like, what an insane story to tell your young college class. And then my favorite Bible teacher ever was from my first semester of my freshman year. He was amazing. I loved his class. I learned a lot. He wasn't, like, the best at keeping on task, but, like, he was, like, a cool guy, and, like, I really appreciated getting to learn from him. And he was so passionate about it, it, like, reinvigorated, like, my desire to, like, learn about the Bible. But we found through his wife's blog, we'd heard that he, like, had become a widower several years ago. We found that he had one of his students babysit for him. And eventually he ended up marrying that student, which sounds crazy, and, like, I wouldn't endorse that, but she was, like, of age. They, like, waited enough time. It's just, like, even my favorite, the best teacher I've ever had for the Bible, he's, like, still, like, doing something, like, kind of wild. But yeah, and schools, please stop hiring actual loons to teach kids about the Bible, because you might get a bunch of people who turn into witches. You never know. Alright, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you, like, want more stories like this. I don't know, like, what else I could use, but there was a substitute teacher who hit a girl one time, so my school was kind of crazy. So if you want more stories about that, leave a like, leave a comment, whatever you want to do, and have a magical day. Goodbye!